I had an uncle I was really fond of, and we used to go around his house every Christmas, and he had this wonderful red leather armchair, and there was always a fire going on, and he would smoke a pipe and have a glass of malt, and it was just so Christmassy to me. I wanted to try and somehow encapsulate all of that into this next course. I had to try and get those amazing smells of whiskey, leather and wood into my next dish, which I decided would be a palate cleansing sorbet. This is a leather extract. Be careful with this one because if you're too high, it's just not that I've ever chewed a leather handbag. But not bad though. Can you see it? Okay, so simply blowing smoke onto the sorbet wasn't going to work, but I wasn't giving up. We need to smell them. I need to be in the air, but I need to find a way of bringing the smells into the serving of this dish in such a way that this is going to really conjure up that memory. What I needed was an expert in smell to help me capture those nostalgic aromas, and for that I went to Paris and IFF, a leading perfumery where they create some of the world's best known scents. I come to meet Christophe Laudemiel, a kindred spirit of mine who is a genius of smell.
Well, for Christmas, people have a lot of things with spices, and cinnamon and orange or mandarin and clove and laurel, cookies, the gingerbread.
At Christmas time, and you'd have the freezing cold and there'd be somebody there with chestnuts roasting.
Yes.
And I always loved the smell. For all of us, smell at Christmas time is hugely evocative. The challenge for me was being able to create those natural smells in a magical way. How many aroma molecules have you got to work with?
Well, molecules, I would say around 1,000. Very often you have 20, 50, 100. Like this is very common. Fragrance formula with 50 ingredients, 100 ingredients. And people cannot believe this. They think we mix 3-4 things together. No, even nature is not like that. A rose smell is 300 molecules.
So, having inspired Christophe, he set to work creating my smells. He used all manner of techniques, from an electric sniffing device that breaks down fragrances to computer programs that analyse every molecule. But despite all the technology, the best instrument we had was still the nose. This is a really nice balance.
The smell is a three-dimensional thing. You breathe it, it surrounds you.
The hard wiring that goes on with smell actually taps into memory, and you can't control it. I've just about got the whole smell of that wonderful old room. The only thing I haven't got is the fire. My idea was to get the fireplace into the meal by setting fire to the sorbet. To do this, I'm going to add a special heat-resistant substance called gellan. This will allow the sorbet to flame without melting. To begin with, I add water to a pan. Then, to that, I add freeze-dried apple for a deep, appley flavour. Apple juice, and this, malic acid. And malic acid is the acid that's predominant in apples, and it gives a really pleasing sensation on the side of the tongue. It generates saliva, which makes food really mouth-watering. And finally, the magic ingredient, the gellan. We just need to bring this to the boil, mixing while we do so. I have to mix this as I heat it to stop the gellan forming into a gel. I then need to cool that down really quickly. So just pop these containers into an ice bath. After cooling, the mix is then churned in a sorbet machine. Churn this. Now, as with all sorbets and ice creams, it's very important to make sure you've got as small ice crystals as possible. If they're too large, you're going to detect them in the mouth and between the teeth, and the ice cream will actually feel icy, not be as smooth as it should be. So here I've got some whiskey. Time to check the mix. So there we are, a flaming sorbet that really doesn't melt. Now for serving this sorbet, first take the bowl. I've had this covered with leather. The idea is actually when you're eating it, the touch is going to help that memory and the smell that we're going to be presenting with this dish. Into that, I'm going to put a hot cast iron casserole dish. And this is what the sorbet is actually going to sit in. And here I've got some apples, cubes of apple that have just been macerated in a acidulated syrup. And the sorbet will sit on top of these cubes. So here's the sorbet. The sorbet is going into the pot. So lid on. It's now ready to go to my guests so they can do the fun bit and set it on fire.
Yeah, okay.
That'll do it. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
This is a leather plate.
Yeah,
a leather plate?
A leather plate.
Oh, this is, it means it's going to get quite warm. Oh my lord.
I'm so watch Mr. Wogan. So now go eat. Be careful now. This is
now pour the whiskey over.
There's the potential for disaster here.
Whoa!
Easy, Jack.
Wow.
Because the alcohol burns off.
Oh yeah, that's going good, guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
You pour the Jack Daniels on to the sorbet, which that went against all my instincts. You light it again. I was fighting nature at this point. And then you start tasting. Delicious.
So we've got our flaming sorbet, there's our fireplace, but where's the smell of the leather and where's the smell of the fire? It's in the roses, it's in the flower display on the table. It was underneath the roses, underneath the vase. We put in a bigger container that it sat in, we put a bed of crushed dry ice. Dry ice is wonderfully extracting aroma. So Eric arrived at the table with a teapot that was full of hot water with the aroma that Christophe made, the smell of the room.
What is this scent?
Wow.
What is this?
Michael Flatley to come out of the centrepiece of it.
What? That is fantastic.
Right, now I can't see my spoon. I'm scared.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Really lovely.
And you've got that intense wood smoke, which always catches your clothes, and you can smell it. And what was lovely, you were sitting at the table and you could smell that in your clothes.
Wow. Those nose hairs that I had earlier, they're all gone now.
That's right.
Look at this.
Ain't this wonderful?
So the leather's warm, yeah. The cocotte is warm, and the sorbet's still freezing. Yeah.
Couldn't name the flavour. It's so worth it.
Wow. It was fun. That's the whole point about it. Yes, the flavours were extraordinary and different, and a combination the like of which you're not going to get anywhere else. But it was also fun. We had great fun. I mean, you're setting fire to a sorbet. Don't be ridiculous.
I knew I was going to use goose for the main course because that's what I've had for the last 10 years for Christmas. I love it. But where were we going to get the goose from?